Well, okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the New England Chapter Connects. We have another great topic today we had over 160 participants sign up, and I think as of right at the moment, we're just approaching 100. So thank you for joining us, and folks are joining us from all over New England and beyond. So welcome, everybody. My name is Rich Benevento. I am the New England Chapter APWA National Delegate to the Council of Chapters and the co-chair of the Public Works Awareness Committee. Today's session is a topic facing public works managers all the time. How do you sell your budget to elected officials and the public? Today's session should give you some takeaway ideas when you need to get that budget approved. So hopefully you'll be able to leave today with some ideas. We have a great panel of experts from across New England that are here to share their insights and experiences. This should be a great discussion, and we are so glad that you're able to join us this morning, especially on a snowy morning, right? Just a couple of things before we get started. First, many thanks to our Public Works Awareness Committee. The PWAC continues to develop events and promotions and new ideas and many other programs, working hard to promote the value and importance of public works in our communities and in our lives. It's really a great group doing great work to promote public works. And if you're interested in getting involved with the committee and joining us, we'd love to have you. Please reach out to either myself or Julie Piancentini, and we can get you information and get you on our email list so that you can join us. Also, once again, a big shout out to Donna Shea and Regina Hackett and the entire team at the Connecticut T2 Center. They really do an amazing job organizing the communications, the logistics, the technology for our New England Chapter Connects program. So we want to thank Donna and Regina and their team. We certainly could not do this without them. And of course, our APWA New England Chapter sponsors. With the support of our sponsors, we're able to bring you all of the valuable programs and events to our members and to the public works community. We know this past year has been really tough on our event calendar. But our sponsors have stepped up and have been right there with us. Their continued support of the chapter and our public works community is so very important. So we really want to thank our sponsors, and we hope you will thank them as well. The New England Chapter Connects program was created to keep us all connected and informed during these unprecedented times. And while we cannot meet and collaborate and network and socialize like we'd like to, you'll find that this series, we hope that you'll find this series worthwhile and informative and really a way to stay connected. We have a great lineup of topics for the upcoming year, including our regular monthly session coming up on February 25th, next month. This time, selling your capital improvement projects to elected officials and the public. So if you thought your budget was tough, I'm sure that oftentimes it's a little tough to get that capital project through the process. And then on March 25th, a very timely topic, planning for Public Works Week, with lots of great ideas that can help you get the most out of Public Works Week and also to promote the value of public works to those we serve. This will be another great program. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, or if you're not a member and you'd like to become a member, or you'd just like more information on our New England Chapter Connect sessions, all of this information can be found on our New England Chapter website. And you can see it right there on the screen. Plus, I think Regina will be putting it in the chat box, but newengland.apwa.net. So let's get going for today's session. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's session, Tony Mertz. Tony is the Director of Finance and Operations for the City of Malden, Massachusetts Public Schools. Tony has more than 25 years of experience in accounting and finance, in the accounting and finance industry for both the public and private sectors, with years in local government. Tony has served many roles for local governments, including treasurer collector, city auditor, finance director, director of retirement and school business manager, where she's been responsible for financial analysis, development of zero-based budgets, management and optimization of staff, and really general overview of all accounting and finance procedures. Her most recent experience has been with the City of Malden, Massachusetts, where she's currently serving as Director of Finance and Operations of the Malden Public Schools. She oversees an overall budget of approximately $120 million and provides financial, operational, and advisory services to the Superintendent of Schools. Tony is certified as a school business administrator through the Department of Education in Massachusetts. And she holds a BA from Boston College and a graduate certificate of accounting from Bentley College. So please give a warm welcome for our moderator this morning, Tony Mertz. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me here today. My name is Tony Mertz, and I come here today with years of experience in multiple settings. I've worked in the private sector, municipalities, and school settings. In my time as a consultant, I have watched closely not only the numbers on a spreadsheet, but also how organizations function. Having an outsider's lens and a front row seat to observing many different settings has provided me with quite a view. Some of the most stellar practices I've seen, and as well as some shocking ones. Today, it is my hope that the panelists and I can share some of our experiences and what we have learned, all in an effort to make your life easier. I will be introducing our panelists today that will help you, and hopefully we can help you answer some of your questions. Our first panelist is Linda Zurtek. She's the finance director for the town of East Hartford, Connecticut. The town of East Hartford, Connecticut has a population of 50,000. The general fund operating budget is $104,075,000, and her public works budget is $8,361,000. And at East Hartford, Connecticut, the town council approves her budget. I'm also here to introduce panelist Ann Watson. Ann Watson is a mayor of Montpelier, Vermont. The city of Montpelier has a population of 7,500 residents. The public works operating budget is around $2 million. In Montpelier, the city manager proposes the budget to the city council. The city council may make adjustments to the budget, which they then adopt. The council's budget is then put to a public vote by an Australian ballot on town meeting day in March. Welcome, Ann. Our next panelist is Kevin Shepard. He is the Director of Public Works for the City of Manchester, New Hampshire. The City of Manchester has a population of 113,000 residents. The Public Works operating budget is close to $42 million. The budget is approved by a board of mayor and aldermen. The mayor presents a budget, gives it to the aldermen who can modify her budget, and ultimately, they are the ones who vote on the approval. Welcome, Kevin. Our next panelist is Steve Matchik. Steve is the Director of Public Works for the town of Exeter, Rhode Island. The town of Exeter has a population of 7,500 residents. Public Works operating budget is just over $1 million, and the budget is approved by in-person financial town meeting. Welcome, Steve. And our last panelist is Jeremy Marcette. Jeremy is the Director of Public Works for the town of Natick, Massachusetts. The town of Natick has a population of 38,000. The Public Works operating budget is $9.2 million, and the budget is approved by the form of government, a representative town meeting, select boards, finance committee, and then the budget is submitted by the town administrator under the direction of the select board to the town meeting for appropriation. Welcome all our panelists. So we have received quite an amazing set of questions, and what we're trying to do today is help you get an understanding what it takes to sell your budget to the mayor and to the finance departments and things like that. One of the questions that we would like to pose to our panelists was, how do you market your department and all that you do? So does one of our panelists want to take that on?
Sure, I'm happy to speak to that. You know, the budget in Natick is very, the schedule is very laid out by charter. You know, the boards that must do it, and you know, elected official wise, it's a representative town meeting. So we've got hundreds of elected town officials that we're trying to quote sell our budget to. With that formal process being a part of the year, we find that really selling our budget happens throughout the year and everything that we do. So even though, say, you know, American Public Works Weeks is in the spring, we actually use that as kind of our marketing strategy to help sell our budget. So when on a normal year, we're able to have an open house and a truck day and celebrate American Public Works Week and showcase all of the great activities that the department does and the essential services it provides. We kind of start our budget process the spring before, to lay the groundwork to market our department. We also have had in the past a citizens academy where residents can learn more about the community and then maybe become volunteers. And we find that that was a great opportunity to introduce folks to all the great things that Public Works do, face to face with, tours of our facilities. And often those folks would come in to that class with kind of a predetermined opinion on what Public Works did and maybe some negative views, but would leave with a different understanding and often would be supporters and advocates for our budget rather than folks that may question it. So it's kind of a continuous process we find in Natick for selling our budgets.
Tony, if you want, this is Kevin Shepherd. I can speak. You gave a quick synopsis of how our budget process works, but every year our budget process is actually, the process is the same, but our presentations are always different because it depends on who our mayor is and who our alderman is. Whether they want a presentation from us or not, or whether they just want our numbers. Most times they're just looking at the bottom line. But we always try to make some type of presentation where we remind people of the basic services we provide here at Public Works and how many of the city functions couldn't function without Public Works, whether it's plowing, our solid waste collection, our wastewater treatment facility. How far does that go? I'm not sure. But we also try to take a look at the benefits that we can provide with a properly funded budget, taking a look at potentially long-term savings, some ideas we may have on that. Or one success story we had was automated collection. So if we can sell some of the benefits and some of the benefits of a properly funded budget, that's always helpful to us during the budget process with our elected officials.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here as well. I think for me, it comes down to the rationale. So most of the time that does speak to the bottom line, as Kevin was mentioning, but there's a lot that goes into that. And that could be, as nuanced as like, well, you got to spend this money to save money in the long run, right? Like having that long view is key. So that's one essential thing. It could also even be like, this is going to save us on overtime or, especially as far as operating budgets go, even the rationale of like, we need more people because morale is flagging. Like that is, that is a good reason to be increasing a budget or to sell, or for me as an elected official to buy into a budget. I guess I would also add, just building off of what Jeremy said, I agree. It's not necessarily just about the day that you're making that presentation. It's about the whole year prior to that. It's about the plans that you've made in the off season. The presentation is like game day. So, but what were you doing before game day to set yourselves up for success when that time comes? And for us, that's like having good steady state plans. And those steady state plans, what does it take to maintain things at an acceptable level for the long haul? Those plans, which I recognize is more related to capital, but those plans even drive our operating budget as well. So I guess. Well, and that's true for water sewer. That's true for pavement conditions, for all of that. So I guess I'll leave it there.
I'd just like to mention that every day we do different jobs throughout the year, and I take advantage every day. If I run into a citizen or a politician, one of our board members, even another department head, to have a conversation, even if it's very quick, always discussing budget and the next year's budget. And I find that pays dividends when it gets down to budget hearings, which for us will be coming up in a few weeks, in March and April, and when you have to go in front of the public at an in-person meeting, you have to sell your budget basically 3 times. First, you have to sell it at a budget hearing, then you sell it at a public hearing, and then again at your in-person financial town meeting for myself. So we get that extra step, that in-person with the residents, which pays dividends if you work at it all year long, even if it's for only 5 minutes on any given day. And that's just good for now.
So one of the things that I have learned, being in multiple settings on how do you sell your department's budget? Well, you can't promote your department until you have 3 things: a vision, a mission, and a purpose. All 3 things come together and give you the understanding of what you need as a department, and you need to be able to sell that to all your public officials. Some of those things are, how do I promote that? Well, openness and honesty, right? People need to know what you're working on and what's being done and what's not being done. There has to be great communication, right? Your board members need to know what's going on. Communicate all the time of what's going on and what needs to happen, right? And that constant communication will help them, right? If you started a year earlier, constantly seeing things that you need will help build that budget later on, right? And there's support for it. Writing skills, right? Again, it's selling your department, but you need to start with that vision, mission, to be able to sell it to others. One of the things that I've also learned is it's always better to underpromise and overdeliver, right? You're managing expectations, right? That is huge in all of our departments, but especially in public works. Manage the expectations for your select board, for your town members, and things like that. One of the other questions that was recently asked, and I'll leave it up to any of the panelists who want to answer this, is what is the process to convince elected officials regarding support for mundane infrastructure improvements, right? How can they make it more exciting for everybody to say, support this? Do any of the panelists want to take that question?
Well, I guess- Go ahead,
Uh,
Kevin.
This is Kevin Shepherd from Manchester. I mean, I think, we're always trying to relay on the benefits of what we do and the benefits to the residents of the city. As everyone knows, we provide the basic services to our cities and towns. Again, whether it's road maintenance, road plowing, refuse collection, but, we try to sell like our road plan. We went before the board and we said, if we implement this road plan and if we get this proper funding, these are the benefits. The residents, the whole city is going to see, every resident of the city is going to see benefits of the services we provide. So we're always trying to lay out the benefits to all citizens and all residents within Manchester of our capital plans. And that's very beneficial. It's been beneficial for us.
I think sometimes the excitement of, say, a new capital project, everybody may be excited about a new rail trail, and it's going to be wonderful. We'll have the 3-mile new rail trail, and there's a lot of excitement around that project as it's being designed and constructed. But often folks forget about the fact that, this new piece of infrastructure will need long-term maintenance. So we've found it beneficial to really plug up front when, these new projects come into play, to kind of feed off that initial excitement and work in a maintenance plan and, get that before the elected officials ahead of time, so that we lay the basis for asking for those additional resources, as the time comes up. So, kind of playing off, and instead of, that the everyday mundane budget, we can kind of feed off that excitement of the new project. And we've also found the need to utilize some of the less exciting news that happens. There might be in an emergency, you get a heavy snow winter one year. It can help lay the groundwork to get some more resources the next year to kind of point to those examples, or maybe you have a water emergency or something that helps you kind of get the ear of the public. And I think sometimes it's how we recover from these emergencies that help show the good works and help us lay the groundwork for more resources.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to Public Works is always recognized for the last thing we did, and it's something we did months and months earlier. So being springtime, sweeping is usually the hot ticket item. Maintenance on our facilities, lawns especially, people see that. If you don't mow the grass the 2 weeks prior to a meeting and the public comes to either the town hall or the auditorium that we're using and it doesn't look presentable, that's what they remember you for when they walk in the door. If their road hasn't been swept. But so keeping up with your website and posting the next job of the road or the area of town in which you're going to be doing these maintenance items, the mowing, the sweeping, the springtime items, the basin cleaning. If the public's kept aware of where, when, it makes it beneficial to you when you're in that meeting because their road was swept, their basins were cleaned, and the grass was cut. And they remember you for that at that moment. And you can remind them of the big storm and how successful you were. But the up at the moment items you're working on helps greatly with the public, and at least here on the smaller community. Thanks.
So yeah, I've got a couple things to add here. One is something that I think has helped for our elected body here is going on tours, particularly, you know, when it comes to needing to buy a new Vector or, you know, plow truck. It really helps that our elected body has visited the garage, that has had the opportunity to see all of that, and when appropriate, you know, has also been able to do some ride-alongs. That helps increase the buy-in of the elected officials into, I think, really getting what it is that you're trying to sell to that body in the budget. And the other thing I wanted to add is thinking about building off of again what Stephen was saying about, you know, what is your past success. I just want to put in a plug for data. As someone who loves data myself, that speaks to me. And so if you can build I mean, I think all data tells a story, right? So if that data shows that there have been successes that you can build on, that can help couch some of the asks or the details that might otherwise be a little bit on the dry side, because I mean, everyone wants a win and wants a success. So if we can point at data as evidence of past successes, and that whatever you're asking for is can be a continuation of that's helpful. And it is also something that your elected body is going to be interested in. I mean, we're always trying to as elected folks, trying to point at things that the city has been successful with, to say that we can that we've been a part of helping to accomplish.
In terms of the panelists, does anybody want to share a success story that they've had recently or in the past, and how that has helped them obviously move their budget forward in the current year or in a prior year? What are some of those successes that have helped you push your budget forward?
You looking for a panelist, Tony?
Yes, please. A panelist, one of the panelist success stories.
Sure. I had mentioned our automated collection program a few years ago. We do our own solid waste collection, and we utilize all of our public works employees, and we do all of our snow plow. We don't contract any of them. So all of our employees are very important throughout the year. A few years ago, we went to the board of mayor and aldermen. We talked about automated collection, which is the direction collection is going. But we sold it not only as a potential savings to the city and workers' comp, but not necessarily in employee salaries. We converted 5 of our 8 trucks, 3-man trucks, to automated collections. So there was a savings of 10 employees because we used to have 2 in the back of every truck. We went to the board of mayor and aldermen again. We sold it as a savings because less injuries with the people throwing trash, shoulder injuries, back injuries, slipping, falling. but the savings was in workers' comp, and we've seen those savings. So not only have we become more efficient with the automated collection, the employees are, I believe, much happier because they're not in the back of a truck getting injured. But the Alderman allowed us to reallocate those resources. That was my biggest concern, versus eliminate those 10 employees, reallocate them to what we called, well, many different areas. There were 10 of them. One thing we created was our dedicated action response team, which we called our DART team. And they're there basically for the everyday occurrences that we may get from a resident, from an elected official, so that we don't have to pull people off other projects. So it was very successful. You know, we're saving the city money in workers' comp. We increased our services. So, you know, that was a good story that we were able to pass on.
I could mention one that we've had success with here in Natick. A few years ago, the town administrator asked that Public Works assume the responsibilities of all the landscaping around all the school buildings. So we had traditionally done the parks and around the municipal buildings, and school custodians had done the landscape around the schools, which was in Natick quite substantial. But folks were not happy with, you know, the way they were being maintained, and the town administrator thought there would be some more efficiencies if that became part of Public Works responsibility. So, you know, we did a comprehensive study. My supervisor of that division, I believe, is on the call. He did a wonderful job looking at the needs of that, and that we used that to say, okay, we'll take this on, but here's our analysis of the needs that we see, and partnering with the school department, which, you know, they compete with our general fund budget in Massachusetts, the way the funding structure is for local government. So to have them be a partner in this was very helpful for us to grow that division, to add more resources, more expenses, get some equipment, and we've delivered. We've delivered that, and they've seen that year over year. They've seen the improvements on the school landscape. And to note what Ann said, you know, kind of be able to point to that and build on your success, to ask for, you know, the next thing that you want to work on, is great to have that example, so you can just kind of build on your successes.
I have two very quick small ones. You know, it's easy to give a capital improvement success, but when it's your regular routine work and maintenance, recently Public Works here in Exeter, we've took over the maintenance, public building maintenance of our library, where it used to be a standalone operation. Now we take care of that. And just even up to today, we've saved tens of thousands of dollars that they would have spent with private companies or contractors that the Public Works now takes care of. And that saved a lot of money. The little things we do really make a difference. When we eliminated private contractors for snow removal, and we purchased extra vehicles that we needed for work throughout the entire year, now we just hire drivers for our trucks, and we're getting a much better program, snow removal and quality product out for the taxpayers, because we can control them easier than we could with our private contractors, saving a lot of money for the town. Thanks.
One of the things that I have learned, both being in a school setting and as a finance director, is being honest about what needs improving, right? As well as your successes. Share your plans and progress with your audience, right? Whether it's a school committee, whether it's a board of selectmen or town meeting, right? Share these reports with them. Show them the data, like the mayor had said earlier, right? We are not going to be great at everything, but this is where, you know, we need improvement on some things, and these are the things that we've done really well. And I think that will help to get the buy-in that you might need. And the other thing is to brand your communication, right? Being consistent in the way that you communicate helps bring people back in, right? It's that consistency that people are always looking for. That's what your stakeholders want, right? It's showing consistency, show the appreciation for those that have helped you. That helps. Here is another tip. Or a question that somebody had asked, right? How do you keep your budgets steady right? Because everybody's saying, keep the budget steady, but costs keep going up. How do we do that, right? Especially now in the pandemic and overall, right? Cities and towns are limited in how much they can increase, and how do you keep that budget steady but costs go up? What needs to get cut, and how do you manage that? Just wondering if maybe one of the panelists could answer some of that.
I'll take a quick stab. One of the things we do is we do all of our vehicle maintenance. All of it is done in-house for the most part. We send out very little. That saves us a lot on expenses with vendors and the truck dealers. So doing the in-house maintenance and repairs is a big savings. So that's just one little thing that we try to do.
I guess in Natick, we've actually been blessed with a fair amount of new growth, which helps, increase the funds available for municipal departments. So generally, we're not in normal years. This year may be different, but in normal years, we're not challenged with actually cutting our budgets. But the expectation from the public and the growth that has occurred in the community is, even though we're able to kind of add to our budget incrementally, isn't keeping pace with the expectations. Or what folks want for public service, how they like their parks maintained, or the level of service they're receiving. So, that's been our big challenge, is to kind of keep pace with that public expectation. So again, we try to kind of help set that expectation that if this is what you'd like, this is how we might be able to get there, and kind of work together over time to build that. And certainly some of the more, like the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, separately funded from the general fund, self-sustaining funding, doesn't have the budget pressures per se. However, folks see that in their water rates, but they want clean water and they want the sewage to go away. On that side, we find that, that's really where the data and the asset management planning and the master planning really helps. So if you lay out a good solid plan over the next few years, and you can actually build that into a rate model for your water sewer rates, that can really help sell your department. And you can see how, and you can show maybe in your forecasted rates over the years that a little investment now earlier is going to save in the long run. So we find that helpful. And it's a little different on both funds, the enterprise fund and the general fund. Sometimes there's a different approach to selling your budget based on where the revenues are coming from and the competing interests.
So Linda, as a finance director, what do you see, right? And how do you adopt these budgets, and what are you looking for in terms of a DPW budget, a public works budget? What helps sell that to a finance director? We've heard from the mayor, she likes to see data and statistics and things that have been done. But from a financial point of view, what do you like to see departments present?
Well, for finance, it's data is certainly important, and numbers. But I think what really makes it helpful, I think all public works directors, that it's all about balancing the dollars with the services. There's always daily and monthly and yearly rotating priorities, and where public works falls in that is going to shift, at any moment. I think what is helpful, and what I have found helpful, is I know all the public work directors have a lot of data, and I think that data is good in that, if you're asking for a highway department overtime budget of $500,000, it's so easy when the council is looking at the numbers and they say 500,000 is too high, and they make an arbitrary decision, we're going to cut that to 450,000. But they don't know, and often I don't know, what does that mean to you in an operating level? Because I am betting that you have a spreadsheet that itemizes everything you spend overtime on by category, whether it's snow, leaf pickup, spring cleanups, just covering when staff is out on vacation time. You know exactly what makes up that 500,000 you asked for, and how you're going to have to pivot And, you know, if we say, nope, you only got 450, you know what cuts those are making. I think it's really important that you communicate what that means to the budget and the other decision makers, because they probably don't know. And they're just looking at the end of the day. And we're just, you know, working on our budget to go to our town council right now. We have a pretty early budget cycle. The elected officials, while they want, you know, all residents, they want the services they always had, and they don't want their taxes to go up, like ever. Like that's the normal mantra ever. So just keep doing what you've got to do. And we don't care that salaries are going up and costs are going up, and they just want what they want. And I think that if people understand what they're giving up or what the cost, what the detail is, I think that will help increase. I can't say you're going to get that $500,000, but I think you'll have a more informed group of decision makers who know that when they don't give you that $50,000 and you can say, well, what do you not want me to do? Do you not want us to line the ball fields for Little League in the summer? Or do you not want us to, you know, pick up this side of town in leaf collection in October? You know, this is the numbers and this is what it is. So I think all that information that I know you all have out there and is good information, you know, will help to sell your case to the budgeting people, because when it gets to my desk, it's all just numbers and numbers and numbers, and there's no stories and there's no detail. So I think, like other people have said, communicating your story, communicating what you're doing, and communicating that all year long and not just at budget time, because we do remember just the most recent thing you did, but you know, there's stuff that happens all year long that people forget about. And you know what, they just expect it and they're used to seeing it. So, but they notice when that grass is not cut on that one place, or the flowers are dead at that flower bed, they're calling your mayor's office and they're complaining about Public Works. They're not calling to say, thank you for picking up my trash today, or we had a storm the other day and my street looked great. Nobody calls to say that. And you guys are probably used to it. You're the unsung heroes behind the scenes on so many things. So, but like I say, I think you guys have the data, and sometimes you got to bring that data up so people can make a better decision.
This is Kevin Shepherd. I was just going to say to Linda's point, you know, when there are budget cuts, it's always difficult to say where you're actually going to cut, because, you know, right behind Steve is Public Works makes it happen. And that's what Public Works does. You know, when there's budget cuts, you know, there's little pieces that are cut throughout, and we still try to get everything done. And as elected officials, many people can understand that the expectation is, guess what? You're still going to get it done, even though we cut your budget. We don't want to hear it. You know, we're going to cut your budget and you're still going to get it done. And what I always say, you know, there's going to be 10 weeds in the park this year because our budget was cut. And guess what? Next year, there's going to be 100 weeds. And guess what? The following year, there's going to be 1,000 weeds. So it's incremental that people are going to see it. So you're not going to see it year one in that budget cut. And you may not see it year two, but you're going to see it in the long term. And that's what people don't get a lot of times, or the elected officials don't get initially, is you can cut us and you may not see the effect right now, but the long-term effect of this, it's going to catch up to you. You know, it's like the road plan. $1 today is, you know, save you $4 in 10 years. It's elected officials a lot of times don't have that vision to say, oh yeah, we cut you now. It's really going to have an impact in future years. We may not see it now, but you're going to see it in the future. And that's a really tough point to get across.
Hey, Tony, we have a question in the chat box. Is benchmarking valuable for selling the budget?
Does one of our panelists want to take that question?
Sure, yeah. In Natick, we were approached by a neighboring community a few years ago to partner with them and a couple other communities to compare and contrast ourselves and to, quote, benchmark ourselves. And we found it to be a very valuable tool. One, it was just nice to get together with peers to talk about our similarities and differences and challenges and see how they've addressed those, and you know, getting tips on how to go about different things. And it certainly was, you know, in our conversations with, say, the finance committee, when they're looking for data, it is good to have comparables. So, you can say, okay, this is a similar sized community that they may travel through all the time. So they see firsthand how that neighboring community, maintains their parks or whatever. And they may want to be like that community. And then, to have that benchmarking information, you can, well, they're like that. They are able to do this maintenance, and this is the resources their community provides to do that. So we have found it useful. We've had to kind of moderate it somewhat in that, some of our elected officials say, well, we aren't like that community. We don't want to be that community. But, so we have to apply it to our situation. It's definitely valuable information, good metrics, good comparisons. More data is good. We do boil it down so it's digestible, and try to fit it to Natick situation. Since some folks think your residents think your neighbor, your community is totally different from everybody else. Maybe in some ways, but it does have a lot of similarities to others.
I guess I've seen benchmarking used as a reason to cut the budget, or at least the advocates for cutting the budget end up saying, well, that community over there can do it for less. What's that about? And and that can be tough without a deep dive. But I think it really, if you're going to do benchmarking, taking the time to find out those stories about like, well, what, how are you able to do that? And but there, I feel like the value add is mostly about sharing good ideas, and not ideally anyway, not becoming a weapon to advocate against someone's budget.
Tony, we another question was sent to me as a follow-up based on the last question. They were wondering if we can find a better industry benchmarking data. Every year, their police reference as the National Police Chiefs Association standard for ex-police officers for 10,000 residents. Should they have something similar? Does that make sense?
Yeah, we use the Pavement Condition Index as a benchmark, I guess you could say, for measuring how well we're doing in terms of keeping up the conditions of our roads. And actually, that was a tool that we used to determine that we were, and we all kind of knew this in our town, but we were pretty far behind in taking care of the maintenance of our roads. And that was an objective measure that we could use to say, all right, well, we need to steadily increase how much we're spending on our roads till we can get to an acceptable level of the pavement condition index for 90% of our roads at any time.
Regina, if I could just offer something as well to the participants here today. APWA nationally has formed a committee to look at benchmarking, similar to the way police and fire do those same sorts of things. So this is taken as sort of a national interest at APWA. So hopefully there'll be more to come on that in the future. But they have taken this topic on and see it as a valuable tool for public works operations. So stay tuned for more of that. And as we find out more, we'll get it out to our members so that you know what's happening with it.
Okay, and we have another question from Lisa Schaeffler. In Vermont, 67% of our property tax goes to the schools. How do we educate the communities that cutting public works budgets really is not going to impact their property tax bills? Anyone want to take that one?
I'll play.
Yep. Go ahead, Steve.
I would love to have 67% school. Here in Rhode Island, and especially in my community, the school gets 80+% of the municipal tax dollars. So all the other departments in the town survive on the remaining 18 to 20% on any given year. We do explain at our financial town meeting to taxpayers that cutting the operation budget is only going to affect the quality of the roads that they travel on daily. So I use a little story and I tell them that if you can go to the end of your driveway any given day, go left, right, or straight, depending where you live, and there's nothing obstructing you, sand, snow, trees, that service we provided you is in the excellent category because nothing obstructed you and the drivability of your street is excellent. When things start to fall apart and we tell them, well, you keep cutting our budget or level funding our budget, we can't provide this service. That's when this becomes evident. So again, I wish I had the 60%. People here would be very happy, but hopefully somebody else has something too.
I have another question, but Jeremy, did you want to add to Steve's?
Yeah, I mean, I think that challenge is definitely seen here in Massachusetts too, where the school department budget is 67% or more in many of the communities in Massachusetts, and also even in that budget, there's almost one cost driver, which is the teachers union contract can be the biggest budget driver in the whole community. And I think sometimes we learn from that and say, well, that's the elephant in the room. So partnering with the school department on initiatives has helped us. So we have been able to kind of piggyback on their momentum and their excitement to bring forward some of our initiatives. And so it can be competitive, but you can also kind of twist that around to be a partner and kind of bring forward your ideas and your importance.
Okay, and we have, has anyone tried program budgeting as a whole or in part?
I mean, this is Kevin Shepherd. Our budgets are developed by program, through our financial system. We're able to break down our costs, as was mentioned earlier, to almost anything we do, from filling potholes to cleaning sewer lines. But we've never been asked to really sell a budget based on programs. So it's a difficult one. And I'd love to be able to do something like that, show our elected officials the data that we have and the cost of our programs. One time I remember going before the board, we were talking about a page-a-throw system for our trash. And, I made the huge mistake of saying the cost to a resident is less than 1 coffee a week. And, obviously they didn't like that. Which made sense. A lot of people are going out and buying coffee, but a page-a-throw is less than 1 coffee a week to our residents. They didn't like that comparison, but, those comparisons and building budgets like that make a lot of sense to me.
We don't have any more questions in the chat box. Tony, do you have anything?
No, I just wanted to ask the mayor, since she is here. As a mayor, how do you prioritize which budgets get funded and which don't, right? Ultimately, everybody's doing all their presentation, but ultimately it comes up to the mayor and to a board of selectmen and aldermen. Like, how do you prioritize that so that, here at the DPW or Public Works knows what to look for and what to do, knowing how mayors might prioritize some of this stuff?
Yeah, thank you. So every year we put together goals for our council for the year. And those are pretty big categories of ideas. There are things like having transparent government and responsible government, and environmental stewardship, and sustainable infrastructure. Those are the kinds of big goals that we have as a group. And so when I think about prioritizing my budget, I think about those goals. And so, one piece of advice would be, like, if the body that you're presenting to has a list of goals, like how does what you're proposing connect to those goals or connect to those priorities. The next thing I would add to that is that this year, especially in COVID times, I'm sure a lot of folks might resonate with this, is that we had a significant loss of revenue, and so we had to make some really hard choices. And to help us navigate that, we as a body, as an elected body, actually went through the exercise of trying to determine, what were actually the essential services of the city. What was core and what was like just nice, and so that was also very clarifying for us, and a third thing actually would be that we actually put out to the public a survey. What are your priorities? What do you think are the highest, most important services that the city provides? And actually having sustainable infrastructure and nice, basically healthy, well-funded infrastructure was the highest priority. And I know that's not going to be the same for every community, but it came across really clear that that was a high priority for our community. And that became a foundational piece of us prioritizing the budget. Now, to be fair, the other thing that I keep in mind is that especially with COVID, we hope that this is a blip, right? We hope that we're all going to bounce back. And that leaves us with the choices of because cuts have to be made. Are we cutting jobs or are we cutting capital? And that's really, what it came down to. I want to emphasize there that in coming to a body to pitch your budget, it can be helpful to frame things as a choice, right? Like, what are you choosing between? So in this case, as I'm describing, the choice was between cutting capital or cutting jobs, right? And so we said, we think we're going to bounce back. So we're going to take a pause on maintenance. We're going to take a pause on some projects that we were hoping to do and preserve those jobs. So that, and maybe we'll have a bond in the future to do a little catch up. But we're planning that now, knowing that's the long-term plan because we made that choice. The choice could also be between, you can pay a little bit more now for maintenance, or you can pay for a bond later, or I think Linda was saying this earlier, that it comes down to what are you not choosing. But if you can frame it as a choice between A or B, then it can be clear to the elected officials what they're not choosing by basically framing it for them. So that's probably a long-winded answer, but it also, just to get right to your question, it comes down to what feels like are the essentials for us.
Okay, we have one last question that was posed. And has anyone tried to highlight weaknesses in their department's performance during budget? With the current funding, this department wasn't able to maintain their trails to the in the level of their residents expect, be proactive on tree removals, etc. So has anyone tried to highlight weaknesses in the department's performance during budget?
I believe that's important, actually, in being transparent and to lay the groundwork for getting the resources you think you need. You need to point out where the weaknesses are so that you can fill in those gaps. We definitely don't do everything perfect, and I think for us it's just a kind of an incremental improvement approach and build off of our successes. But I wouldn't be afraid to point out the weaknesses either. I think for me, I think that's important, and I think appreciated as well from the elected officials and the residents as a whole.
Yeah, I got a little bit for that. If they underfund you or cut your budget, or attempt to, and you explain to them the weakness that's going to come up, whether your tree program is going to take a hit and residents are going to be complaining about the street trees or dead trees, that you're just not going to have the funding to maintain that bucket truck. You may have to park that for a year if they're not going to fund you. Whatever weakness it's going to create by being underfunded, I believe you need to showcase that and use that as a selling tool to the politicians and the public. That's just an example I have.
I apologize if I'm saying too much here. I just saw throw in a little bit. I think there's the risk of highlighting weaknesses, I think, is that you just don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But at the same time, I mean, we have made decisions to increase staffing based on reports that we've had around morale, you know, as connected to overtime. You know, people were feeling so overworked that they couldn't take vacations and or get the appropriate amount of rest. So anyway, something to keep in mind.
I think I had mentioned that one of the skills that you do need to promote your department is the openness and honesty, right? So you need to be open and honest about your weaknesses and your strengths in order to be able to get people to the buy-in that you need. I think that's very important. I think the people need to see that. Your audience needs to see that, right? Without, like Mayor said, that without throwing anybody under the bus, but they need to know what's going on, right? And being open, honest, and transparent helps you sell your department's budget. I think this is it that we have for today. I do want to thank all of our panelists and everybody who attended. I think hopefully we've answered all the questions that you have asked. And if there are others, feel free to send them along. Maybe during some of our spare time, we might be able to answer other questions that you have. But I do want to thank everybody for coming here today.
And don't forget to join us for future New England Chapter Connect sessions. Thanks all for joining us. Thank you.